And it's Dynamic Dad, positive attitude, full of energy, new ideas. Today I got a young man's gonna come on. He's gonna talk to us about his life, his story, man. Give us a story about being a father, his journey to fatherhood. So Dynamic Dad, positive attitude, full of energy and new ideas. Brother Jason, how you doing? Can you hear me pretty good?
Yes, I can hear you excellent. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, we good, man. Hey, before we get started, man, I want to play this song for us, all right? Let this be the
Okay.
intro, all right? Listen to
All
these
right.
words of this song, man, and then you go, in these times that we living in right now, it might be, relevant.
Yeah.
Excuse me for that.
Oh, it is okay.
All right, here we go, man.
I'm raising a young black boy in America. Oh God, help me. Don't let him get gunned down in the streets. Protect him from harm. Wrap him close in your arms. I can't do this by myself, and I can't trust no one else. You are our only hope. Backs up against the ropes. Please be our strength. You're the God that we know. I need you to hear this one earnest plea. Let him live to be a man and not get killed by police.
Let me show you how to create an amazing ad.
Most self-employed and 1099 contractors
As you can see, man, I know how that hit you, man, but that was after George Floyd, the death, and then the guy came up with that song. So I just wanted to play that because we know that in these days and times, man, as fathers. Hold on, is that you?
Me? I haven't done anything.
I
was like, I didn't do anything.
Nah, hold on, let me stop something here. I stopped it, but it popped back on. I don't know what was going on with that. That was the beginning of that same thing. But I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. But yeah, I just wanted to play that, man, because it's, as we looked on as fathers, we have to think about things like that in this day and time. And it's always been that way over the years, but it's got more media's attention that a lot of our young youth are being killed, oftentimes by police, but oftentimes we got to admit by our own, brothers and sisters are out there killing each other. So we can't go out saying that too. It's unfortunate that they're getting killed by police. Those ones we consider that should be able to protect us. So when you get killed by a police officer, it has a little more weight. We know society tends to look at each other, whether you're good or bad in neighborhoods, and we have these different respect for each other or not respect for each other, in different hoods. So that's something that we have to deal with. But like I said, once again, when you get killed by a cop, it has a lot more weight because, man, if they're gonna kill us, but that's been always the case with the overseer, the officer, the officer, that was always the bounty hunter. That was always the case when a runaway slave. So we can't forget about that too, where the officer came from.
Well, what it does is it just goes into playing with our mind about what we feel about protection.
Right,
Like when
right.
we think like the people that we can call on to protect us, and we'll still call them,
Oh, you
but
had no
still,
choice.
right? But there's still an apprehension, you know. And then being a Black father, I never saw. Well, I go to a church where it's multicultural, so I learned a lot from different fathers of different cultures on how they raise their kids and the mentality that they put into their kids. And so I go from that mindset to my kids' school.
Right.
Now, my kids are there's a lot, like now there's a whole lot more mixed kids than there are just predominantly Black or predominantly white or predominantly Asian. Like most kids in the school in this time, they're mixed. So when we talk about the situation that's happening to certain Black youth, they can kind of identify, but not really, because when a policeman or when anybody sees them, they put them into a category of what they think they are. Because my son is half Black and half white, and people think he's Hispanic. You
Right.
know?
I could understand that. I could
You know
understand
what
that.
I'm saying? Or people will think like he's something else. So what happens is he's going to fall into that category of what people think. So what's happening is I have to teach my son, it doesn't matter what's happening or what's going on. You better be careful with who you're around. You got to be careful with what decisions you're making when we're not around. You got to make sure that right now that you put yourself in a place to where you're going to be effective financially, spiritually, and mentally, because I have no idea what's coming down the pipeline a few years from now when it comes to police, when it comes to people that you feel are going to protect you and they won't. The only thing that I can tell you is that God has your back, and I have your back, and your mom has your back, and your sister has your back sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great segment. We're going to, as we fast forward it, we're going to right now rewind, and we're going to get back into how we got to that point right there. So once again, this is Dynamic Dad, positive attitude, full of energy, full of energy and new ideas. And today my guest on Dynamic Dads is Jason Wolfe, and Jason Wolfe is a father of two, he's a father of two and husband of 13 years. So today he's going to come in, and he's going to tell us about his journey of fatherhood and how he's dealing with fatherhood now as his two young men or his two kids are growing up and then being married and how that family structure is set up. So, Jason, I want to first come in, man, and I want to thank you for accepting my my invite to come on the show and do this podcast with me. And we just talk about fatherhood, man, and talk about your experience of being a father. But I want to first go back to the very beginning. And that very beginning is, man, I want to ask you, did you have a father in your life, and was he a dynamic father or was he an absentee father? What type of father did you have?
Well, when I grew up in a home with my mom and my real dad. But I remember at the age of 3 years old, actually 4 years old, of him getting ready to leave the house. And I said, "Where are you going?" And he looked at me and he says, "I'm going to the grocery store." And I'm like, "Okay, all right."
Kind of odd, right?
Right. I'm like, and I'm this little kid. I'm like, it's like, 1 o'clock in the morning. What you need to get? So he left. I never saw him until a few years later down the road. But
when you say a few years later, do you mean a few years later in your life, like 5 years, 2 years?
Oh, when I was a teenager in high school, that's when I ran into.
So when you were 6 years old, you said how old when he first left to get milk early in the morning?
I was 4.
Was 4 when he went out to get the milk.
Right.
and when you saw him again, he had a whole grocery bag of food in a shopping cart.
I said, "Where are the groceries at, sir?" And he was like, "What?" I said, "You don't remember our last conversation?"
Yeah.
You said go to the grocery store, I'm expecting a whole gang of food, sir.
Right. So he by this
years.
time he should have a truck, somebody's truck behind him. Oh, that's what, 12 years?
Right. You should own a Costco by now.
So tell us about how that looked to you, man. All these years without father. Let's not skip right to him, you meeting him. Tell me how that made you feel the next morning or the next week, seeing that your dad had abandoned you. How did that affect you?
Well, to be honest with you, I really didn't comprehend what was happening. And it was simply because my mom was a single mom. She worked 3 jobs and she was raising 6 kids by herself.
Wow.
So from the age of, I think I was 6 years old, I ended up moving in with my grandparents because my mom got remarried.
Okay.
And I had to stay with my grandparents because back then I had really bad asthma. So my family moved to Panama. So I stayed with my grandfather and my grandmother, and they were a huge influence on me because they were from New York and they were all about, the New York mindset, but living in Arizona.
So
I
were you in the city of New York? Were you in the suburbs of New York? I mean, give us a picture of New York. Were you in the boroughs?
I was living in Arizona, but my family's actually from New Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
Park, New Jersey, and then my New York family, they're from Mount Vernon, and they're also Manhattan, New York.
Right.
So I grew up with that mentality, but then I kind of had a father figure. I had my grandpa, and then my grandmother. And then when my mom moved back, we moved to North Carolina, and here I was with my stepdad and my real mom and my only brother at that point because everybody else had moved out. So here I am getting different father figures, right? Mm-hmm. So I went for a while with no father, but then I have my grandfather who kind of played a role in that. But then I have my stepdad who's white, who really couldn't identify with me and everything that was going on, but he did his best.
Right.
Provided for the family. He made sure that, we weren't out being crazy, running the streets, but he did not put in like an authority type thing. It was like whatever we wanted to do, he was just like, I don't care. Just do it. Just breathe and, get out my house when you're 18. So what that did was that made me wonder, what is a dad like? What is a father like? The only example that I could think of that I wanted to be like was the Bill Cosby show. I was like, look, he's a doctor. Look, he's got a family. Look, he knows all these famous musicians and people. And look, I think that's what a father is like. And then when I tried to chase after that, I didn't even know how to chase after that because nobody really set in my mind, this is an example of what a father does. They just did what they did, and I lived how I lived.
Right.
And then when I got married, I remember our first conversation with my wife saying that she was pregnant, and she was like, "Hey, I'm pregnant," and I was like, "Oh crap!"
Before you get too deep into that, let me slow you down. Before you get too deep in that, let's go back to the traumatic experience that you went through, because see, what a lot of people fail to recognize or fail to even want to deal with, especially in the households that's close. Talk about the traumatic experience that we went through.
Mm-hmm.
So right. nobody even dealt with the fact that here you are, a young man growing up without a stable home of a father. Mm-hmm. You had left, you lived with your grandparents, and you moved back with your mom, but you had a man who was there, but he wasn't really in your life.
Right.
So nobody talked about that.
Right.
Nobody pulled you aside and say, look, we understand that he's not your father, but this is what he's going to do. This is his role. And he never said to you, look, I'm not your father. I'm not going to do certain things. He just went about being about in his life. So you're still wondering, how does a father look? I heard you say that like twice. How does a man look? How does a father figure look? So did you have friends that you were around? Did they ask you, where's your dad? I'm sure they say, I'll give you one example. My mother married a man, and you mentioned Panama. My mother married a young man who was from Panama when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And so there's a language barrier, but it's also a cultural barrier. but he had kids
Right.
in Panama.
Wow.
He had kids in Panama, but he fled Panama to come to the United States. So now when I met him, I didn't have a father. I didn't have a man in my life. And I wasn't used to having a man in the household. It was just me and my mom.
Mm.
So now here this man comes who's not taking care of his kids, now wants to rule over me.
Right.
And tell me
Right.
what to do, what not to do, and how to do it, and blase. And so me and him got into a little, difference of opinions, sort of say. And one day I said something to my mom he didn't like, and he popped off and hit me in my stomach.
Mm.
Not to win out of me. Now I never had a man touch me before. Hit me in as far as discipline wise. So when he did that, I'm like, yo, and I looked at my mom, looked at him like, it's like that now?
Mm.
This dude ain't been here less than a year. He can hit me whenever he feel like it.
Mm.
So I'm just bringing that to a acceptance where you said this man did none of that. No discipline. He let you live any way you wanted to live. But ultimately, what happened with me and that young man, I left and went back to New Jersey and lived. I'm also from New Jersey too. So when you mention those different parts of New Jersey, I'm from the East Coast.
Okay.
So I can relate to that. So talk to me, how did that play on your psychic when you see your friends getting disciplined or your friends going places with their parents, both their parents or whatever, or father, whatever. How did that play on you as a young man to when you got to, a manhood? Because I also use the term 1 Corinthians 13, 11 verse, where I became a man. So how did that transition you to say, I'm a man now? When did you really think that you was a man, never having discipline?
And see, that's what really played out in my life when I became a Christian and got saved. I didn't realize that I battled with rejection, and I didn't realize that I battled with just self-worth. Right. I didn't realize that I battled with insecurity. And it was simply because a man's role in a home is so important. And nobody talks about that. As a matter of fact, just to kind of key off of it, with my business, because I do online business. So what I do sometimes is I just put motivational stuff. And so I did this motivational thing. I said to all the fathers out there, the ones that came home from work and they were tired and they still love their kids, to the ones who made a meal and they were never thanked, to the ones that were pushing and did all that they could do and they were exhausted at the end of the day, but they never got the appreciation or the love that they were expecting. I want to tell you that you're a great father. You're an awesome dad because you're still pushing and you're still in your kid's life. You know how many women were upset with that?
Of course. They got issues too, because they got issues too. So we can't go. That's a whole nother topic, that's a whole nother hole to travel down to. We're not even gonna steer into that, brother. We're not gonna fall into that right now, brother. Come on, we got too much to tell about you, and we're gonna keep on honoring fathers. We're not gonna get distracted. Stay focused.
But what I'm saying is, I didn't realize that I dealt with all that because the expectation is you're a man and you just keep pushing, period. You don't need to have an appreciation. You don't need to get thanked. You don't need to get a hug. You don't need to have an assurance of what you're doing. The mindset is you're a man, you come in, you work, you love your kids, maybe you push them to football practice or that practice, and you just keep going on. You're the spiritual head of the house and you establish like a line, but you don't get any love back. That's and I didn't realize that that's what I was battling. So when I got saved and I realized who God the Father is and how he gave his only begotten son, so we can believe in him and know what love is truly about, all of these feelings and emotions started coming up. And the next thing you know, when I went to look at fellas, I was just like, man, I need to hug you, man. Like this is what it's about. Like The love of God is amazing. And then now I see my kid. I'm like, you know what? This is what love is. I didn't know. And now when I talk to my stepdad now, I call him dad, but I let him know. I said, you know what? I don't know how you grew up because you never talked about it.
Right.
But one thing that I know is that our relationship was crazy, but I'm going to ask you to forgive me for any craziness that I caused because I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
But now that I know, I want us to work this relationship out. I want to know what love is so I can spend time with you and put that into my kid. So my kid will know what love is and he could do that with his son.
Right. So that leads me to that great segment, man, that you was going to. Now, when you first heard that you was going to be a father, because we're talking about this love right now. This is a love that a mother and a father feels differently. You know,
Right.
For one, the woman is going through a lot. She's going to think it differently no matter what. So you could never compare the two. You could never compare the two. But it's still a love, no doubt. So what was going through your mind, or what did you hear, and what did you start thinking when you heard, baby, I'm pregnant? You're about to be a father.
First of all, my wife hates when I talk about this because luckily she's not here. But but when she says I'm pregnant, she's expecting me to be like, "Oh, babe, that's amazing," and hug her and kiss her stomach, or whatever she was expecting. But I was like, dang, how am I gonna do this? I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like,
because once again, you didn't get the training.
Right. I never got and she still doesn't understand that.
You didn't get the manual. You never got the manual.
Right. But she grew up with a dad and a mom.
Right. She had the manual.
Right. So she understands. And I'm sitting here like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I like, okay, as soon as he comes into this world, like, what is my role? Like, how do I do this? Like, what is the plan? Like, how, my brain was going all over the place. I was happy, but I'm a man of action. I'm a man of planning. If you hit me with something, I don't have a plan for it, you need to give me a minute so I could figure it out. So when she hit me with it, I was just like, dang, that's cool, but how are we going to work this out? And then later on, then I was just like, okay, I'm really happy, but we need to work out a plan on what we're going to do. And she was just like, that's what you have to say? We need a plan? No, I love you. No, that's your plan.
Wow.
So that was right there.
So there's a trauma. There's a trauma right here. That's a traumatic experience that just happened right there.
Right. But then when my son was born, all the anxiety, all the fears, all of the questions, it all just went out the window. It was kind of like God whispered in my mind what to do. And the only reason why I can say that I have any impact at all as a dad is simply because I follow in the footsteps of what the Bible is telling me how to raise a child.
Right.
I follow the steps of people that I see on how their kids. And not every parent is perfect, because what works in the ingredients in household B is not going to necessarily work in the same ingredients in household C. Okay.
And it shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be. This is not a Betty Crocker. This is not coming out of Betty Crocker or Dr. Seuss handbook. It's not going to be.
Right. But it still take some stuff that you see and say, you know what? Let me try that out and see what happens. Like right now, like it used to bother me when I would hear about the families that they come to the table and they pray together and hold hands and they pray over their meal. And then after that, they have a little Bible reading and then they play a little family game and then they kiss each other goodnight. I'm like, what family is that? Who are y'all?
That's programming though. That was a programming part.
Right. Right. And I see how they did it. Right. But like I was saying, in my life was so crazy. Every 3 years, I was looking for a job. Every job I had, I was coming home late. I was tired. I was exhausted. Like everything we did was like panic mode. So we couldn't fit everything that I wanted to in my mind to do. So I had to come up with, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, I got a phone call. So I had to come up with creative ways in order to keep my family afloat. And so what we do now is, everybody has a phone. So I send them a scripture. I said, before you start your day, I want you guys to comment on this Bible scripture. Tell me what you got.
So before you go that deep into that, let me go to two little things I want to ask you. Now, you mentioned that you're a believer. So at any time did you go to any minister and say, hey, look, you know, I know I'm about to have a child. I want to tell you guys about it, but I'm struggling because I don't have that concept of what a father is. Was that out of pride, or was that out of pride, or that's just out of you being just like, you know, you didn't understand that, you didn't want to go there? I mean, was there a reason for it? Or?
Right, because I still, like, the baby came, we were, you know, being parents and everything, and my pastor preaches a lot about being a father, being a wife. You know, there's certain sermons, but there was a few times where I came to my pastor and I was like, hey, I'm going through this with my kid. I have no idea what's happening. And I thank God for my pastor because he's older than me. So he always talks about what we do now, the seeds that we're planting now, and the effects that are going to happen later on down the road.
Right.
And how you raise your child, even though they're acting crazy, still keep pushing the right things in them. Even though they may be going, you know, they may even leave, but the things that we say and teach them is what is going to stay with them. You know, don't look at the picture now, you know, keep looking at what's down the road. And I was like, oh, okay, well then in that case, you know, it's not
that put in a little perspective for you, then gave you a little more different perspective of what to do. So how old are your kids? You haven't mentioned, how old are your kids now?
My son is about to turn 12 and my daughter is 10.
Okay, so now here we are where, you know, everybody interact, like you said, they got a phone. So now they got a phone. You raise it to a certain point where now you guys are able to good communication in the house. In order for you to have that phone, there must be a good communication. That must mean they're being disciplined in the schoolwork. That must mean that everybody is doing has a duty and carrying out that duty for you to have that responsibility, give them that responsibility that you know they're going to handle it. Not going to be rebellious. They're not going to be like, oh, dad's going to, you know, I don't understand why we want to do this. So they're all believers. They're all disciplined, and they're all have good communication skills in order for you to put some kind of system like that in place. So how is that working for you?
It's working out great. It started off crazy, and it was just because I was involved in ministry a lot. And then I got taken out of ministry for a minute, and it was a huge blessing because I realized that being in ministry isn't everything. What the Bible literally says, your first ministry is your home.
Yes.
And if you don't have right, then how can you go out there and teach others?
Right.
And so it's the same thing. I implement that with everything in my business and anything that I talk to anybody about. Because when the Bible talks about having the plank in your eye,
right,
you can't be going around telling people, hey, you need to quit doing this, and you're doing the same exact thing. So until you have overcome that, then you can speak on it. Right. So that's why I'm able to talk about being a dad, talk about what I'm talking about right now. So when I started talking to my kids about certain disciplines, like my son, he does the trash, my daughter does, you know, the kitchen, they both clean their rooms, like they all have certain things that they have to do. And when it started out like really crazy because that discipline wasn't really there. They were kind of doing all kinds of stuff. And then I started to see myself just like my stepdad. I was like, I'm not raising my kids like how I experienced with my stepdad. So I started taking my daughter on daddy-daughter dates. Okay. I started taking my son to go see race cars or go see a game or, you know, just spend some time with him. Then I started taking my wife out on dates. The next thing you know, we would do little family activities. And it doesn't happen like every month or anything like that, but we all find a time to come together. Because because I always noticed that there's a time that we need to kind of get off of the internet, get off of all that, and kind of just talk as a family, see where we're at. Because we can see each other every day and talk, but that doesn't mean we're talking to each other.
Right, right.
You know, so now it took a while for that to come, and we're still working on some stuff, but it's way better now than it was back then. And now, because I'm an entrepreneur, my daughter has she started like 3 businesses. My son has started 2 businesses, and now they're getting ready to do a business together selling ice cream. And
So
they're only 12 and
what
11.
business do they have right now?
My daughter, she walks dogs.
Okay.
My son, well, he doesn't do it anymore, but what he did was he would go to apartment complexes and just say, hey, you're on the 3rd floor. I know you don't want to walk all the way down the stairs and empty your trash.
Right.
Why don't you empty it for like $10, $20?
Right. And
These people pay him.
That's a good business start in every complex. I mean, that's something that I know a lot of young men have started and doing things like that because, you know what I'm saying? Especially in Arizona, we have a lot of elderly people.
Right.
So that's a good, good way to get some kind of, do a community service for one. And also, like I said, it's an entrepreneurial spirit, but it's doing something that, independently. And so now you got to be consistent at this because people going to start relying on you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it does more than just get money. It creates a system.
Right.
Accountability.
Right.
Maturity.
Right.
Because understand, some people might get the trash, but that don't mean they always take the trash to the trash can. So let's be honest about that. Let's be honest about that, man.
Throw it over the balcony real quick.
Look, here's the line. Here's the line they told him. I know you don't want to walk all the way down those 3 flights of stairs. So I'll do it for you. But then they get down 3 flights of stairs. I don't want to go all the way to that trash can. So now you got trash all over the place. Like, what happened? How that trash get there? They don't know, man. But yeah, I like to have fun, man, because we got to be honest with yourself. But being a father is a tough job. It's like being a parent is a tough job. I'm not taking anything away from women. Being a parent is a tough job. But for a father, it can be extremely tough when you don't have any guidance.
Right.
You don't have any structure. And so now going forward, you have. I think you mentioned on the page. That's why I got you, because you said you have more free time for your family.
Right. Yes. So now when my kids come home, most of the time I'm either here or I'm on my way here, because I still, do meetings with customers and certain people in my company that I have throughout the day. But since I run my own business, I'm able to, meet my kids here, maybe take them places when they want to be taken places. Because before, I would never come home till like 6, 7 o'clock at night. And it was sad when I would be like, hey, boss, I just need to take the day off. And they're like, why? Well, my son, the school is having a field trip. Can't you get your wife to do that?
He saw no significance in you being in your child's life.
Right. And I'm like, why is it your concern if I take my kid or my wife takes my kid? If I need time off to handle my family, that's going to help me be a better employee because I know stuff is peaceful at home, right?
You would think.
Yeah, they don't look at it like that. They're looking at, my numbers are going to go down. Oh my gosh, like this, and is this guy really serious about this company? If he wants to take time off with his family?
Let me back that up to you for a minute, man. I'm a guy who's across the spectrum. I love everybody, but I'm also a realist. And so think about this, if you may. I'm a black man, you're a black man. And I played that song in the beginning of how we have to look out for being on the radar, sort of say, because of the color of our skin. Do you think as a white man, if you had brought that same attitude to him about going home and take care of your child or being in his life, would you got that same response?
I can't really speak to that, only because I was so focused on what was happening to me and in my realm. The only time that I knew that it happened to me was when I worked for a college company, and I had all the skills, everything I needed to move up into management. And I did everything that they told me to do. But I noticed that there was these white dudes that came in, and within 6 months, they're managers. And I was like, all 7 of them?
Right.
Like, they don't even know how to turn on the computer. How are they a manager?
Right.
Right? But what happened was there was a big lawsuit because they belonged to a certain religious sector. and these dudes were hiring their buddies.
Right, the good old boy system.
Right. And so they tried to, they weren't singling people out, but they were making sure that their folks made it before anybody else.
Right, right.
And so that's the only time I could experience that. But I do know that when it comes to integrity and certain things like that, that's why I had to get out of the corporate world, because I didn't know if it was because I was Black, or if I needed to push myself harder, or if I was just insecure about how I felt about a certain person. Like, I was so sick of the mind games.
Right.
Just tired of it.
Right.
Because you really don't know. I mean, you could think a certain way and you can maybe come up with some proof, but really, you really don't know, because this person that's hiring or the person that's in charge could be going through something themselves, and they just don't like you because of how you are as a person.
Right, and we all go through traumatic experiences, and we're all raised different ways. We know culture has, our culture of America has a big influence on how we deal with that. And I didn't say that to try to put that into a racist content. I just want to put that into perspective, because understand, in America, we have a lot of Black men that are incarcerated.
Right.
And then we have a lot of brothers who are out here trying to get jobs, and they got to decide how they're going to spend their time: the money, or the job, or home. And that's always a big issue. No matter what color you are, time is something that you got to decide where you're going to spend it at. And sometimes, often, that money is more important because I got to take care of my household. And so you got to. So when a man asks you that question, why are you going to leave to go home with your kids when you need to make this money? For some men, that might say, yeah, you're right. Or they might not even bring it up because therefore, in their mindset is, I can't afford to take off.
Right, right.
Just like a lot of single parents know, they can't afford to take off because I'm the breadwinner. There's no man here to it. I have no support. So I can't afford to take off. So when that child gets in trouble, they like, I'm going to tear you up because I can't afford to take off no work.
Right.
That is back in the day. That was back in the day. Now it's a little differently. Right now with the COVID, it's making it a little harder because now people are home in general. But sometimes that goes across a man's mind. I got to choose between money and my kids' time. That time management is very big. So you got that now. You're at home because you understood time with your family is more important than anything else. So you got that. So now that you move forward, man, and you're managing your time, you're really at home enjoying your family. And now in the midst of this COVID, how has that affected you, even though you got more time than you want? Now before they had their own space, they were going to school and off. Now everybody's crammed in this one little box. How do you manage that time?
Well, now I'm getting better at it. Because when you're an entrepreneur and you're in the zone and your family's like, hey, I need you. You're like, hold up, wait. This is the only check we got, okay? So I need to make this work. Because the goal is to build up the money and then we do a big vacation. It doesn't always work like that.
No. No, let's be real. That's what it looks like. That's a vision.
Right. The vision is to build this up so we can take a month or 6 months off and do whatever we want. But it doesn't always work like that, because while you're building,
reality. Tell us the reality.
Right. So while you're building, a kid gets hurt, or a kid is in school, or while you're building, you get into a car accident. While you're building, your wife gets sick. While you're building, you have to face all these situations to where you have to take your focus off of your business. And you have to spend time with your family and work it out. And then you also have to put into your family, I am working from home. I am not kicking it in the house. So that doesn't mean that you give me all these lists to do all day and think that there's still going to be a check coming in. Yeah. So we have to work that out. And so now that they understand Dad's running a legitimate business. Okay, so these are the times that we can talk to him. These are the times that we can do what we need to do. And these are the times that we're going to spend together as a family. And now I have the energy to do that. Because before we would spend time as a family at a restaurant and I'm over here like,
yeah. And that's why I want to get to. That's why, as you went into that, I want you to go into that segment because I wanted to ask you a question. And I'm not going to keep you much longer. I just want to ask you a few more questions. That's really just chop it up with you. But the very important thing I wanted to ask you, man, how do you take care of yourself? The self-care, your mind, your body. How do you keep yourself in balance? Because a lot of men don't understand that. That's where a lot of men struggle at, even if they're living at home or that time for the father, to be a father, to be a husband, but to be Jason. How do you find time to say in that box where Jason doesn't unravel, being a father, being a husband, being an entrepreneur, being a man? That's self-care, not getting depressed and unraveled.
Right. Well, I have to, in the morning, I have to listen to something that's motivational. And that could be a slew of things. I read the Bible. I also listen to Miles Monroe. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Come on, man. The kingdom. We're talking about the kingdom right now. Building the kingdom. I done heard you say it a couple of times, building the kingdom. I know where you got that from.
Kingdom mindset. Yeah, and I listen to some stuff from my own pastor. Right now, I'm doing a book reading with my team. We're going over the 13 laws of being successful. And that's a whole mindset of how to put God first in dealing with certain stuff. I go to the gym. And sometimes, and I love my gym because it's time where I can just not be around anybody, just think about stuff. And then I can pour into my family and pour into my team. And then the self-care sometimes is really spending time with my family, just laughing, not really, talking about things that they need to do, but just laughing, having a good time, and, just making it fun. Because when we do stuff like that, to me, that's relaxing, because then I'm reaping the rewards of all the hard work that I put in. And we may not be going on vacations to the Bahamas and all that other stuff yet. We plan those throughout the year. But the real times is when we're, climbing mountains together, or we're at the ice cream shop together and we're just laughing and having a good time, and that is really the self-care. Because if you're not praying, if you're not feeding into yourself, people are constantly taking from you anyway.
Yeah, they're going to drain you.
Right. So you like right now, I'm reading this book, the 31 Decrees of Blessing for Men. And it's amazing. It just starts off saying, when Jesus was born, the first words out of God was, "This is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased."
Right.
He didn't do anything. He didn't accomplish anything. He didn't do any blessings. God was pleased with him, period.
Right.
And that's what we need to accept and know about ourselves as men, is God is pleased with us. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to go through a journey. We're going to do crazy things. Situations are going to happen all the time. But that doesn't mean that God thinks of you any less. That just means that he's going to bring you through this situation because he's pleased with what he made. Like, I'm pleased with my son. I'm so happy about anything that he does. And he may get me upset. We may have some disagreements. But I know at the end of the day, I'm pleased that he's my son, because I can look and say, that's my son.
Right.
I love
it. And the greatest thing about that, when you talk about it, I'm going to ask you two questions, man. Then, like I said, I'm not going to hold you much longer. And one is affirmations. When God gave Jesus Christ as affirmation, that's my son, beloved son. That's my son. He affirmed to the world, to everybody, this is my son.
Right.
And oftentimes as men or as fathers, we don't get that affirmations.
Right.
And that's very important. Not even from our husband, not from our wives, sometimes not even from our jobs, sometimes not even from our kids, sometimes not even from our buddies.
Right, right.
And so then I want you to speak on that a little bit. And also I wanted to ask you, the second question I wanted to ask you, kind of like slip my mind a little bit. I got so many things floating around. I want to make sure I ask you the right question. So now I want you to do this. I want you to rewind a little bit back to that first question I asked you, or your wife gave you, was, baby, I'm about to have a baby. I'm about to have a child. Fast forward now to where you're at now, thinking about that question.
Okay. Well, first I'm going to talk about the affirmations because it plays into that. I had to tell myself I am a good father. I had to tell myself that no matter what, I am still going to push and I'm still going to be successful at anything and everything that I do. Because when my son was born, like I was saying earlier, the fears and the anxiety and everything went away. But then he started asking me questions and talking to me. You know, he went from da, da, da to, hey, can I have some money or what's, and you know, when kids ask certain questions, you're like, where's this coming from? Like, you know, he's like, look at that girl's butt, you know? And I'm like, where's that coming from? How do you know about that? What do you, like, how deep is this conversation gonna go? You know? And so, and you don't realize the innocence that they have until you ask more discovery questions. And so I had to tell myself, you know, now when I think of all this stuff, man, sorry, I'm getting a lot of phone calls.
That's why I say I'm not gonna hold you much longer. I know you got a busy day.
When I think about this stuff now, I'm so happy that my son was born. And I know now that God has equipped me to be the father that I'm supposed to be. And that any man, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, or whatever, don't fear, because God is going to give you the tools necessary and put you around the right people so you can be the father that you're supposed to be. But you do have to accept that you're struggling in an area and that you need help. Don't be prideful, because I've seen that over and over and over again. I'm the dad. I know what I'm doing. Oh, really? Well, your kids are out running the street and being all insane, and you're not going to address that or talk to them about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I have to affirm with myself every day. I'm a great father. I'm a great dad. I'm a great husband. I'm not going to go into these feelings that I'm inadequate. I'm not going to go into the feelings that I am not enough. I'm not going to go into the feelings of this is not where I'm supposed to be. I should be single, popping bottles and making money with some ladies. I'm not going to go into that.
Right.
God put me in this marriage. God put me in this situation to be a father. And I am not going to push what God is doing, because he has something great, not only for me, but for the people that he has allowed me to be a blessing to, that he allowed me to bring into this world.
That's great, man. And before we go, man, is there any social media that you want to plug in there, or your business or anything so people can find you? Or, you know, as they can say, you're an entrepreneur. So is there anything you want people to know about you that they could reach out to you about?
Yes, because one thing that, just like I was saying earlier, when it comes to education about being a father, we all need education on finances, on spirituality, and just being a normal person. And one thing that I am so like tired, I wish I would have known when I was in high school, was how to manage money. What is my credit score? How can I make this money grow? What is like, none of that was even like a thought. I just, because my thought process was, okay, I got to school. Okay, I work at Carl's Jr., make some money. And then later on, I'm going to be a manager at whatever. Like, if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. And it's true. And I educate people on financial literacy just to make sure that they know where their credit is at. And if they need help disputing things or removing things, I help with that, as well as helping you know how to make your money grow, making sure you know what a will and trust is for. Like, how many people don't have a savings? 14, 13 billion people are in credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 13 billion, like 90% of them don't even have a rainy day fund.
Right.
You know, so I teach on that. So my thing is, come to my website, just find me on Jason Wolfe on Facebook. You can see all the stuff that I talk about, all the success that my customers are having, how to get you from where you're at now into a home if you don't have one. And as we all know, this housing market is crazy.
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to move right now, so we'll talk offline about all those other things. So I'm just thankful that you mentioned those things because that's important. And a lot of times, I have a son who's 21 years old, and so a lot of times we try to teach those things to our kids. I've always been an entrepreneur. He sees that he's an entrepreneur. He wants to start his own business right now. So it's those examples that we set in place. But there's still a lot of things that we still had to take as a process in everything. So we had to go through those processes. But once again, man, I want to thank you for coming on. I know your phone's been blowing up. You got a lot of people calling you, trying to get that credit repair, they're trying to get that financial advice from you. So I want to let you go. But I want to thank you for coming on Dynamic Dads and, man, sharing your experience with us, man. I appreciate you.
Sure. And you have yourself a good day, and God bless you.
Man, thank you, man. You have a good day. Talk to you later.
All right.
So once again, that was my interview with Jason Wolfe. And this is Dynamic Dad, positive attitude, full of energy and new ideas. And you can find me at www.dynamicdad.org. You see it up right behind me. And check me out on Facebook, IG, Dynamic Dad 1. Hey, you need some advice, you need some help, some counsel, some mentor. Hey, you just want to talk to me, you want to come on my podcast, hit me up, dynamicdad.org, www.dynamicdad.org. Let's talk. I appreciate my man Jason Wolfe for coming on and sharing his experiences. The one thing I always talk about is the trauma in the house. People don't want to deal with that. This is Dynamic Dad, positive attitude, full of energy, new ideas. And I thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching it. Keep me lifted up, man, and positive attitudes, positive vibes coming to me, words of encouragement. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for listening, and continue to check out my new episodes that's coming up soon with more, more interviews with dads. This is new season for Dynamic Dads, and we're going to do it big, we're going to do it strong, we're going to do it until everybody's, is the trauma's lifted off their lives. All right. Thank you. And you guys have a great day.